Hello and welcome to our very first video from Kitchen Table Studios. This is a introductory video to our first title, Liquidity, and just to give you an idea of what the game is about and the basics of how it works. So the idea with these videos is we plan to start releasing update videos monthly from August. And alongside every update video, we're going to release a pre-alpha build to the community. Um, so the game's in very early stages. It's certainly not polished, and there's a lot of development left to go. But our philosophy is we want to engage with the community as early as possible and get feedback, so you can sort of help us guide development, and we can get a feel for what people really want from this game, and give us some criticism as well of some of the things that aren't working. So, sort of a really brief overview of what it is. It's a sort of a bank management simulation game, and the main thing we want to avoid is to have this as sort of another Robin Hood simulator or stock market simulator. It's not that sort of game. It's meant to be a rich, in-depth, and quite complicated management of a commercial bank. So I'll give a couple of examples of things you can do in a minute, but I'll perhaps you know perhaps the most notable thing is that the sort of the theme and the style of this game. We've set this up as a sort of a Windows 95 terminal, so that's your job. You sit down and you load up your Windows 95 PC, and from there you have to run and operate a bank. So it's set in 1995. You'll see from the game timer here, which is ticking along. You start on the 1st of January 1995, and so aspects of the game will reflect that. So the game has actually been developed in VB.net, which, as far as I can tell, has not been done before. It's very unique, and there are some downsides to developing in VB.net, but we've done it for the reason that this is the best way to get a really authentic Windows 95 feel. So the window itself is full screen, but it can be windowed, and it's what we call an MDI parent form, which basically means the main application is a container, so a little bit like a desktop, and there are forms you can move around inside of it. So that was a conscious decision. It has downsides to development, which I won't bore you with now, but it also has some benefits in that it's a much more authentic way of representing something like an application. And you can also, when it's windowed, drag this across two screens or multiple screens and have a very large area if you want to. So I'll quickly demonstrate just a couple of the sort of the basics of what you do in this game, and then in subsequent videos I'll go through many more of the features individually. So you have your programs icon here, which is a little bit like my computer, and this gives you access to a lot of the different components of the bank. So I'm not going to go through many of these right now, but what I'll do is just demonstrate the sort of thing you can do when you run your bank. So you can open up your product manager, and you'll see we don't have any products yet because we've just started our new bank. And then on the left here, we have a load of different options of different products you can make. So these are financial products, you sell them to customers, and the idea, of course, is to make money. In terms of the actual overall objective of the game, we don't have a single metric defined yet, but one of the sort of figures of merit, which is going to be most important, is what's called equity. So that's essentially the value of your bank, and we'll talk about the different financial metrics in future videos. But let's say we want to make a personal loan, for example. We would just click here, and then we set it up, and we have to define the terms for our personal loan. So we can call it whatever we want. We can set an interest rate, the duration, maximum duration, the maximum loan amount. Currently, we're limited to $10,000 because that's the where we are in the game. And then we can define the way in which we pay it back. So let's make this a loan where you pay in daily installments. So then it's a question of what do you set the interest rate to? Well, we don't know, because we don't know what the prevailing rates are in this world. So we need to load up our 1995 Windows browser, internet browser, excuse me, and look and see what the competitors are doing. So the very sort of basic front page of our internet browser is this BankNet, and we can look at Rate Watch and take a look and see where the interest rates are. So the central bank base rate is 4%. And if we want to make a personal loan, we should look at the competition for personal loans. So we'll click here, and then we get a list of different interest rates to see what other banks are lending at. So there's quite a wide range here. I think we may narrow that in the future, but we can see it's sort of between 6.5 up to 12. So our bank is new. We don't have any reputation. So if we want to make some money, we're going to have to undercut the competition. So let's set it to say 6.5% as our interest rate. So let's create the product. We can close our internet browser now. And here it is. So we're going to run time forwards and wait until we have a customer pop up. So you'll see very quickly that a lot of this is about managing windows and making sure you stay on top of everything, and that's a really important part of it. If you don't manage your bank well, it's going to get very chaotic. But we got our first loan request come up. So this person wants to borrow $2,000 for a period of 1 year and 9 months. The interest rate is set, and if we lend to them, we would receive $3.49 per day. So they have a credit rating, which is B-, and we can talk about that in a future video. But basically, you have to make a decision based upon their creditworthiness, whether or not you lend to them. So we're going to go ahead and lend to them and see what happens. So the balance is $2,145. So what does that mean? We lent them $2,000, but in total, we're going to receive $2,145 back. So let's look at our finances, which is here, bank summary. And you'll see that our equity's gone up, right? So we went from $50,000 to $50,145. We can expand that out a little bit, and we see exactly what happened to our cash. So we lent $2,000, so our cash dropped from $50,000 to $48,000, but our assets, including cash, have gone up. So we have an asset, which is the loan we just made, which is now worth $2,145. So the interesting thing with this is a loan which is made. This is a value which also includes the probability of default. So default is if the customer decides or is unable to pay back the money. So if we made a really risky loan to someone with a poor credit rating, we may find that the value of the loan is actually less than the amount we lent. So it could be, for example, in this case, $1,800 if we perceive there being a high risk that we're not going to get any of it back. So that's the basics of it. We've lent out some money, but now we have to also make money as well. And one way we can do that is by creating another product like a deposit account, for example. So similar sort of thing. We've got to set the interest rate, overdraft, and so on. And again, we don't know what the prevailing rate is with competition for interest rates. So let's have a look. We can go down to deposit accounts, and we see here that typically the banks are lending between 1.5% and 3.5%. So we want to, attract customers from these banks. So if we set it to 4%, then we're going to be offering a higher rate than any other bank is offering. So that would make it attractive to customers. So let's put it up to 4%, and we'll make that product. So just as a reminder, if we go back to our personal loan, our interest rate was 6.5%. So the idea here is what we're going to do. We're going to take money from our customers at 4% and then lend it out at 6.5%. And the skill there is just making sure that we can manage the money and keep the flow so it's manageable, and also to make sure that we only make good loans. So this customer has a higher credit rating, so I think we can go ahead and approve this one. And we see again, if we look at our equity, it's gone up again. So that's the basics of it. I'll leave it there. I'm going to talk about all of the different products and the game mechanics in the future. But that's essentially the gist of it. What you want to do then is, as time goes on, is you'll unlock loads of different financial products. So you may have noticed these grayed out mortgages, share dealing, index trackers, and things like that. So while we don't plan to be a bank simulation, a stock market simulator, we do incorporate aspects of the market into the game. But basically the objective there is that you want to be able to hedge your risk and make as much risk-free money as possible rather than gambling on the stock market. There are ways to make money gambling on the stock market, but it's challenging. It involves risk, and there are other ways and other approaches to the game. So you can sort of optimize your bank and focus on different areas. So if you look at the qualifications tree, there are loads of different ways of playing this. You could say, for example, focus more on loans, higher value loans, mortgages, and do things such as collateralized debt obligations. That's where you wrap up the loans that you've made and then sell them on, which allows you to freeze up liquidity to make more loans. Or you could go to the share dealing products, sell index trackers, create your own actively managed funds, work towards having institutional investors. So, for example, a company would want to borrow money from you rather than just a customer. And then the share dealing, you get access to the market data terminal, stock options, and then exotic options. So these are much more complicated aspects of the game, and we can talk about those in future videos. Or you can do things such as you can do debt issuance, bond trading, commodity trading, and interbank trading. This is just the skeleton of the qualifications tree. It's going to be expanded as we develop the game and add many more features. Yeah, so that's basically it. We'll catch up in another video where I'll just talk about the basics of the controls of how you move and operate around the screen. A lot of that's going to be relatively self-explanatory. And yeah, see you in the next one.